All right, and welcome back to Take What You Can, episode 28. This is going to be the last episode of 2024. We're going to take a small break. I'm going to come back. We've got a lot of new ideas, new processes of doing things. We're definitely going to add video to this podcast, whether it's good looking video or not. We're going to start getting some videos, some clips out there, some shorter YouTube videos, possibly a Patreon. We'll get those things set up. Today, we are mainly going to talk about the Super Bowl favorites, or who I think are real possible contenders. And this can get tricky. This can get really tricky because to a certain extent, it is an opinion, because not every aspect of analytics, not every record is going to show that someone is true Super Bowl contenders. Now, I'm sure there's some analytics people out there that have data, numbers, and I value those, but I think there are some real people and real players that make a difference. So when you have, for example, I have the Bengals on this list. I know they have a hard time even making the playoffs right now. They have to have a lot happen to make the playoffs. But what I'm going to say is, if they do make the playoffs, I wouldn't bat an eye if they were in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be surprised at all. It would be really impressive based off how they started. But we're going to mainly talk about, in order, who is the Super Bowl favorites for the NFC and the AFC. So the real contenders that I have that I think have a genuine chance to win the Super Bowl, I think all other teams are a bit of a stretch. But here's the list I have in no particular order. I've got the Buffalo Bills, the Philadelphia Eagles, Cincinnati Bengals, Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore Ravens, Detroit Lions, Green Bay Packers, Minnesota Vikings, Kansas City Chiefs, and Los Angeles Rams. So, aka, if you're in the AFC or NFC North, you have a crazy division. So, starting with, the NFC, who do I think is the favorite? Jalen Hurts just got injured, or he got a concussion. Obviously, they weren't the same without him, but they were still obviously a great team. I don't know. I'm still, based off roster talent alone, I'm going to have to put the Philadelphia Eagles as the NFC favorite. That's what I'm going to say at this point. That's with the caveat, as long as Jalen Hurts is healthy long term, they will be fine. In terms of Super Bowl contention. Let's see here. For the AFC, I think the favorite is actually the Buffalo Bills. I think they're the best team in the AFC. I think Josh Allen's playing out of his mind. They're well-rounded. And I think it's a matter of time. Only a matter of time before Josh Allen gets a chance at a Super Bowl, a legit chance. I just hope it's not against the Vikings, because it's going to be hard to root against Josh Allen. I'm still going to root against him, but for those of you who don't know, I'm a Vikings fan, so I'm sure I've talked about it quite enough on this podcast. But okay, let's go to the next favorites in the NFC, in my opinion. I'm going to have to go Detroit Lions, because I know they have a lot of injuries, but the way they play football, I agree with on so many levels. And even though the Vikings are really good, I just think there's certain things about the NFL in terms of running the ball and having a great offensive line that are tried and true that the Vikings just don't have. So I'm going to have to see it to really believe it, which I hate that phrase, but I'm going to have to see it to believe it. I really am. So I'm going to put the Lions ahead of the Vikings on that one. For the AFC, the next team you got to put the Chiefs. We've got to put the Chiefs up. I think, yes, they're having kind of a fluke year. Yes, everyone's saying about the refs, this and that. However, at the end of the day, they've been there before. They've won 2 in a row. Really hard to three-peat, but you got to put them at least up there a little bit. At least a little bit. And then in the NFC, we got to go Minnesota. Let's go with the Vikings because that's where I draw the line. Even though the Packers do run the ball a lot, play the right way, the Vikings are a much more talented team. But the Packers can close the gap and possibly beat them in the playoffs because they play the right way. And with the Vikings, sometimes it's hard for me to fully get behind it, even though they keep winning. And I hope I eat my crow on that one. But okay, next in the AFC, we're gonna have to go. Oof. I'm struggling between the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers. I really am. I know the Ravens just whooped them. The Steelers didn't have George Pickens. Yeah, I'm gonna have to go. I'm gonna have to go the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore Ravens here. Kind of doing this as we go. Okay, and next in the NFC, who do we have left? We have the Packers and the Rams. Now, I'm going to have to go the Rams. One, because they've been there before, and I'm not just saying that because I don't like the Packers. The Packers are just a young team. They're playing insanely well for how young they are, but the Rams are dangerous. I would not want to play the Rams at all. But okay, in the AFC, next we got the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think the way they play football is correct. They've got a great defense. As long as they get George Pickens back and they have a chance, then they have a chance. I think they do. Next in the NFC, we're going to go Green Bay Packers. And then next in the AFC, we're going to go Cincinnati Bengals. Because you cannot doubt Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. You cannot doubt them. Mainly Joe Burrow. A little bit of Jamar Chase. But okay, here we go. So on our NFC bracket, we've got our NFC list. We've got the Eagles as the favorite, Lions as second favorite, Vikings third, Rams fourth, Packers fifth. AFC, we got Bills first, Chiefs second, Ravens, Steelers, Bengals. So now we're going to go NFL. Okay, so let's see here. In the NFL, who is the favorite, the Eagles or the Bills? And I'm going to assume that, like, as long as they're not out for the season, they're healthy. If they're week to week, I'm going to assume that they're healthy. At this point, I might have to put the Eagles. I think they're the best team in football right now. Unfortunately, I'd love to beat the Eagles. There's a reason you play the games. You can talk about it all you want. You can put numbers on paper, lists on paper, but at the end of the day, rosters on paper. At the end of the day, you have to play the games. Who's more of a favorite, the Bills or the Lions? I think the Bills are a better team. I mean, they did beat the Lions, but I think even if they never played and the Lions had all their people healthy, I still think I'd pick the Bills. The Lions are the Chiefs. The Lions are the Chiefs. This one's interesting. The Lions do have the injuries. The Chiefs have been there before. The Lions really like to play the right way. The Chiefs are playing the right way. This one's rough. My gut's telling me the Lions. It is hard to three-peat. But then we'll go Kansas City Chiefs. It is hard to three-peat, man. It's really hard. Then we'll go Kansas City Chiefs. Now the next question. This one's really interesting. Who has the next best favorites, the Vikings or the Ravens? This one is really interesting to me. Really interesting. Oof. I'm going to have to say the Vikings. I know they have Lamar Jackson, but I mean, the Vikings defense is playing insanely well. And the Ravens defense, I can look up their rankings here, but I don't think their secondary is doing very well. Let me see here. Because if you have a secondary that can't stop anybody, it's going to be hard to win in the playoffs. It's going to be hard to win in the playoffs. Yeah, they're 31st in yards allowed. They're the 16th ranked defense in yards allowed. Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Vikings. Because where are the Vikings at on this? Let's see here. Because I know the Ravens have a really good offense. But the Vikings, I'm pretty sure statistically, have a very good offense as well. So, okay, yeah, Vikings ranked. Wow. They're 12th in yards for the Vikings, 14th in yards allowed, but they're second in points allowed, 9th in points. Against the pass, the Vikings have been worse. Or no, yeah, they've been worse. Or around the same. Holy cow. Yikes. Am I just like letting my my bias get in the way here? Yeah, 'cause we can't run the ball very well. Yikes. One of the best at stopping the run. We do allow a lot of yards, but we're 15th in touchdowns allowed, and we're first in interceptions. Let's see here where the Ravens are at. The Ravens are 31st in yards, 26th in touchdowns, 21st. Okay. They're pretty good at stopping the run as well. Yeah. I mean, I think you almost have to say the Ravens have a better chance. But we have such a better record. That's the thing. Like, that's so hard. Because the Ravens are what? What are they? They're 10-5. Okay. We've got 3 games on them. It's hard to kind of say that, you know. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think, okay, it's close. Part of me wants to say the Ravens because I feel like I'm being a homer. But also, like, we've got 3 games on them. And we have a better shot at home field advantage than they do. So I'm going to go Vikings over Ravens. I don't think that's that crazy. And then we got next, the NFC, we got Rams. AFC, we got Steelers. I think at this point, I might say the Rams. Los Angeles Rams. Now the question becomes, do I pick Steelers or Packers? Steelers or Packers? Because as of now, it's been every other. I don't think that matters, though. Do I have more confidence in the Steelers to win the Super Bowl or the Packers? I'm going to say the Steelers. And then do I have more confidence in the Packers to win the Super Bowl or the Bengals? I think, let me see some of these rankings on defense for the Bengals. Because I know that they're not great. 28th in total defense. Yikes. 26th in passing yards allowed, 21st in rushing yards allowed. They do have the 7th most interceptions. So they're getting a decent amount of takeaways. Packers defense, how we doing? Let's see here. Okay, 9th ranked defense. It's still... Do I do Packers or Steelers? But they have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Does that matter? Does that matter much more than the... I'm going to have to go Packers. I did not mean for this list to be like every other, but unfortunately it is. Unfortunately it is. So, the list I have in terms of favorites to win the Super Bowl at this point are going to be, we got Eagles at 1, Bills at 2, Lions at 3, 49ers, Chiefs at 4, Vikings at 5, Ravens at 6, Rams 7, Steelers 8, Packers 9, Bengals 10. Those are my 10 favorites to win the Super Bowl at this point. Because I think once the Bengals get in the playoffs, man, it's going to be scary. They're almost like the Rams. Like, you don't want to underestimate or have to see this team because they could really beat anybody at any given day. It's just a matter of, are they clicking on all cylinders? Teams like that are really scary. Really, really scary. I mean, the Rams are about to have the 3 seed. Seahawks are in trouble, man. They are in trouble. They are not making the playoffs. I'm sorry. I called it a couple podcasts ago. I called it. But they are not making the playoffs at all. So that's kind of where we're at. But we will see. Let's talk about why I think. Okay, likely Super Bowl matchups here. Now let's break down, let's break down likely Super Bowl matchups. What are the most likely matchups? Likely Super Bowl matchups. Because how many different combinations can you have? Because you've got 5 teams or 10 teams. I don't even know. I don't even know how to do the math on that. But that's fine. Okay. So most likely Eagles versus Bills at this point. Well, basically, okay, how many options are there? Because if there's 10 teams, 5 on each side, so is it 5 to the 5th power? Is it? I don't know. Well, yeah. No, I don't know math. Okay, Eagles, Bills, probably most likely Super Bowl matchup. Next, most likely, I don't even know how many possible outcomes I could have for this, but we're going to go Eagles, Bills. We're going to go, what's the next most likely? I think Eagles versus... No, I don't even think Eagles Chiefs is more likely. I think Bills Lions versus Bills is more likely than Eagles Chiefs. Then I'd say Eagles versus Chiefs. Then I'd say Lions versus Chiefs. Can you imagine the teams that are the gambling websites that do this? They come up with all the options. That's crazy. Because if every team has a possibility of playing 5 teams, then that's basically, what, is there 50 options? Maybe? I don't know. We'll just do the top 10. Because we're already at 4. Okay, Bills Lions. Okay, Chiefs. Next likely. Okay, so far we have Eagles versus Bills, Lions versus Bills, Eagles versus Chiefs, Lions versus Chiefs. Then the next possible outcome, I think, has to be Vikings versus Bills, and then Vikings versus Chiefs. And then I think it has to be Eagles versus Ravens, Lions versus Ravens, and then Vikings versus Ravens. How many are we at here? We're at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, one more. Next would have to be I think Eagles versus Rams. So yeah, okay, so these are my top 10 possible matchups. My top matchup is going to be Eagles versus Bills, Lions versus Bills on the next one, Eagles versus Chiefs, Lions versus Chiefs, Vikings versus Bills, Vikings versus Chiefs, Eagles versus Ravens, Lions versus Ravens, Vikings versus Ravens, Eagles versus Rams. That's crazy, man. This Super Bowl is going to be nuts. I'm really excited for it. I really am. Because Week 16 really just cemented things. You know, I really thought the Vikings were going to have a hard time with the Seahawks, which they kind of did. They're a bad matchup for them. So, yeah, I knew they were going to play each other well. You know, the Bills kind of just, like, went by at the skin of their teeth. Is that how you say it? You ever, like, hear things over and over again, and then people say it and it sounds normal, and then you say it out loud and you realize how weird it sounds? It's just crazy. But, yeah, at this point, the playoff picture, you know, I think the Broncos have a real chance of missing the playoffs. And I think the Bengals have a real chance of actually making it. I don't care if it says 7% probability. I think there's a real chance. The Buccaneers basically just knocked themselves out of the playoffs by losing to the Cowboys. But we'll see, you know. We'll see what happens. Falcons, I don't know, man. They're a good team. It would be cool to see Michael Penix in the playoffs. I'd really like to see it. Yeah, he was my second favorite quarterback coming out of the draft. He's legit, man. He's got a lot of like intangibles that you can't teach, and it's not going to be easy for him. But we can talk a little bit more about, you know, the upcoming structure. So for the past few weeks, it's been 1 hour long podcast 5 days a week. So I plan on changing things up a little bit. I've tried doing regular videos. I've tried doing longer podcasts. I've tried doing shorts. And really what I decided is I want to have an aspect of all of them, but I'm realizing the value or where their value lies, I guess. So instead of just 5 1 hour long podcasts a week, Monday through Friday, what we're going to do is we are going to have hour-long podcasts on the Patreon Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so 3 days a week. And the goal from there is going to be they're going to be hour-long podcasts. And then from there, finding the best, let's say, 3 moments from each podcast. We're going to make those into YouTube videos. We're going to post those. And then from there, I'm going to find the best moment from each YouTube video, make those into shorts, YouTube Reels, TikToks, Facebook Reels, YouTube Shorts, Facebook Reels, things like that. So we're going to have a lot more content spread out in a way that can reach more people, because we've found some success in some areas, some and not. Definitely going to improve more on like thumbnails, you know, things like that. I will still be live tweeting and talking on X. I think that's going to be the best place to follow me. If you want to just get like my baseline reactions on things and kind of really just see more of my personality instead of just like the content itself, which, the content has that. But it's TWYCF on X. Take what you can football on X. I'm on there all the time, just reacting, sharing some of my notes from the draft if there's younger players in the game, anything like that. Yeah, that's really all we've got today. Again, we're taking a break just to reset. I really want to spend some time on the holidays. We should be back January 2nd. And we're really going to try to move from there. Maybe January 3rd, because I think January 2nd is more of a Thursday. It is a Thursday. So I think we're going to be back January 3rd. January 3rd is when we're going to be back. We'll have the new layout there. We'll get started on a Friday. We'll have that Thursday to, get some things together. Yeah, and then really move from there. And from there, it's going to be nonstop. And I'm excited for it. I'm excited to gain more of a following. I've tried out a lot of different things, and I think this is going to work. And, it's ultimately not up to me. It's up to God. And at the end of every podcast, we thank Jesus, or I thank Jesus. You don't have to thank Jesus. But just reminder that he died for our sins, and he loves us eternally more than anyone else could ever love us. And, he's led me here. I honestly did not want to do this at all, this podcast. The idea of it was terrifying. Didn't want to be one of those people that, I don't want to be an influencer kind of person, egotistical, kind of the what's the word? The stereotype for that. I really like to be a private person. I don't like everyone knowing my business. So the idea of this is really scary, but ultimately I realize to give him the glory, what is more amazing than making someone who doesn't want to have their life public, make their life public, and to glorify him, And that's how I know it's God's calling for me and not my own. Like I said, I really didn't want to do this, but, I'm just trying to follow him the best I can. I've prayed a lot about it. So thank you, Jesus. Thank you, anybody who has been listening. I know it's not a lot of people, but again, we're going to have more consumable content on different platforms as 2025 starts. We've got a plan. We've got a weekly plan. We've got goals that we want to hit. So thank you to anyone who's listening. You guys take care. Have a good day.